Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the SOM TV podcast. My name is Jason Wise. On today's episode, I want to revisit a previous recording that we already did about Gamay. It's sort of having a moment in the sun as we speak, and I think it's a really relevant thing. But besides that, on this podcast, we spoke to Megan Zobek, a winemaker who makes M. Zobek wines. But the news just came out that she was just named the new winemaker at Opus One Winery in Napa. In light of that, we're very proud of her. Megan has been on Sparklers, many of our original shows, and is a constant friend of the show here and on the podcast all the time. So in honor, we are going to play our episode where we speak about Gamay. Before I do that, I want to remind everybody, we have made a blind tasting card game called Blinders. I don't know if you've ever played it before. People who have played it love it. And right now, we have put it at 50% off. So if you go to blindersgame.com, you can get any of the decks for 50% off. blindersgame.com. Without further ado, my conversation with John Adams of Wild Sound Wine and Megan Zobek. So John and Meg, we are going to do a little bit of love to one grape here on today's podcast. One that I can't tell if it's the most hipster grape or the most underrated grape or what. But Gamay, I know, is very near and dear to both of your hearts. John, you're the podcast producer, but you're also a farmer. You also grow your own grapes. And Megan, you have released your own wine now, M. Zobek Wines, which is Gamay, the reason for you being on this podcast. I want to ask both of you, we'll start with you, Meg. Why do you love Gamay? Why do you love this grape? And then I'm going to make fun of you. So go ahead.
Perfect. Oh, man. I've been obsessed with Gamay for a long time. First of all, I think it's delicious. It's also really fun to make, which sounds funny, but it's true. And John will probably talk more about this, but it's actually really cool to grow in the vineyard. You can do a lot of different things with it. But really, for me, it's a hedonistic thing. I just think it's incredibly enjoyable. It pairs well with food. You can drink it alone. Almost everyone loves Gamay.
I usually drink alone. Honestly, what is Gamay or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Pairs well with friends or alone,
Yeah.
Crying times. But yeah, it's something that the more I learn about it, the more I love it. And, now making it, I'm even more obsessed with it. I just think it's so unique, possibly underrated or more of an, if you know, and more people are finding out about it. So it's getting ready to blow up big time.
John, let me ask you from a farming standpoint. You mentioned that you love to grow Gamay. What's the difference? Why would it be any different than any other grape?
I love to grow Gamay because when you compare Gamay to like Pinot Noir, for example, so we grow Chardonnay, Gamay, Pinot Noir, and of those three, everybody has a different sort of growth characteristic, but Gamay in particular is awesome to grow because it is so easy to farm. The shoots grow straight up into the wires. It's almost like you don't even have to tuck wires in a vertical shoot positioning trellis system. It is super heavy cropper. So like most people try to get like 2.5, 3 tons per acre of Pinot Noir. You can easily get like Gamay by itself will crop at like 7 or 8 tons to the acre, which is insane.
At no loss to quality or?
Well, most people will drop fruit to get more concentration in the wines. But, for example, like Pinot Noir, a shoot of Pinot Noir typically will have like 1 or 2 clusters per shoot. And Gamay will easily produce like 3 or 4 clusters per shoot. So it's like double. So, growers love it, but, winemakers want to tap that back a little bit for lower yields.
Makes sense. I cannot believe how much it's gone from like, a grape that was not really, frankly, not known by its name. Beaujolais was what you knew it as until now. It's like the most hipster thing in the world. I'm going to come in with a real hot take here. I think Gamay is like the Modest Mouse, if you're familiar with that band, of all grapes.
Wow.
Because it was like people who were fans of like Modest Mouse were like crazy fans of Modest Mouse. And then their songs became like in romantic comedies and stuff. And people were like, oh, that's mine. It's not cool that this is cool. And like those fans got really mad that band got really popular. And though I'm not like a big Modest Mouse guy, it's a weird analogy, but like I've always loved Gamay, but now it's so popular. I'm kind of like, I feel like I have to go against it because it's everywhere now.
You're raging against the machine?
Raging against the Gamay. No, because
yeah, but it's popular for a good reason now,
It's so delicious. It's so delicious. And I think we're getting like better and better examples of it too. I think for a while you could really just get like, I'm going to make sure I don't like insult anyone, but very crappy, like high production commercial examples of Gamay. And like John said, if you crop incredibly high, you can just produce huge amounts of bulk. It ferments really easily. Like it's a beautiful fermentation, at least in my experience. So you could make like this massive, production wine that is incredibly inexpensive that they're just pumping it out for volume with no real quality. Or you can actually really spend some time with it and like take care with it and, do smaller production and really, like John, like take care of the quality of the vineyard instead of just like pumping out this commercial product without like much thought. And you're seeing like more and more examples of that coming out of Beaujolais. Like there's growers that have been like standing on this hill for a long time being like, no, Gamay is actually like this incredible grape. It's very comparable to like the best Pinot Noirs. Obviously not the same flavor profile, but even like Fleury, they just applied for Premier Cru in Beaujolais. Like there's a ton of producers out there and a lot of them have history, but they've been like kind of standing on this hill talking about like, this is a quality grape. This deserves, better attention. And it doesn't deserve to just always be, Nouveau that gets put out into the market like 2 months after it's done fermenting or whatever, when it's actually still fermenting in the bottle. Like,
yeah. I don't have to do my take on Beaujolais Nouveau, but I think it's one of the great atrocities that the wine world has ever committed. I hate it, and I will always say that whenever it's brought up. I despise it. We should do a little history on Gamay because it's had some serious ups and downs. And, the Nouveau thing is actually a really fascinating story, but it's become this commercialized plonk. But, going back to Burgundy around the 1500s or so, they ripped all the Gamay out of Burgundy proper. And it was like an edict. It was a law that you were not allowed to grow Gamay in Burgundy.
Yeah.
And I find that incredibly fascinating and also sort of elitist. It's a very strange thing.
Yeah.
Why would they do that?
It was deemed ignoble. It was the ignoble grape. Pinot was the noble grape. Gamay was the ignoble grape. And it was, who was it? Philip the Bold or something, who was like, trying to protect the quality and the name of Burgundy, and so just wanted to rip out all of the Gamay. And then I think there were like several rulers after that also were like, no Gamay, no Gamay. And then finally that went away at some point in history. And that's when, what's his name, George Duboeuf came and he tried to bring Gamay back. And part of it was what John was talking about. And what we were talking about, you can produce very high quantities. But he was just trying to do like a not get rich quick, but like moneymaker, right? Where you're, normally wine is not a great way to make money because you have to age it. And so you're not, you're spending money before you actually start bringing in money. You're spending money on the next vintage. So if you can pump it out very quickly, like in a month after fermenting, you're actually making money. And so he was doing large amounts of this and making huge parties out of it. And it was a huge thing. And, but the quality was horrible. And if you leave it on the shelf,
Shots fired at George Duboeuf.
I know. Well,
okay.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. I like this. No.
Well, but it just it really like put this stigma on Gamay that it's just like this kind of, it's only good straight out of the fermenter and into your glass and you drink it as quickly as possible because certainly you're not going to age it. And so that like the series of events between getting them ripped out and calling them ignoble and then having the George Duboeuf thing where it's only Nouveau, like that kind of scarred Gamay for a long time. But then you have like fast forward, you have the Gang of Four or the Gang of Five, which are like four classic producers. I think there was a fifth one. I was reading about it the other day. I can't remember who it was, but it was like Lapierre, Guy Breton, Foillard, and Thévenet, sure, which I'm pronouncing incorrectly in my awesome French. So these guys were kind of like, these were the guys who were like, I believe in Gamay, like, and they were like, and also screw all of this commercial farming, like we're pumping chemicals into the ground, like this can't be good. So they started farming organically. And then also they're actually kind of credited with birthing, and we won't get into it because it's completely changed now, but like,
you go into natural wine. Yeah.
Yes,
is that where we're going now? Yeah.
So, it has become something totally different now than I think what they started with.
That's true. That's true.
So they were kind of really more like, this should be taken seriously and we're going to be the people that do this. And they kind of pioneered that. And I mean, now you look at Foillard and Lapierre, and I mean, those are some of the best examples of, amazing Gamay out of Beaujolais, and they're beautiful. And these guys were the ones who were like, we're not doing Nouveau. We're aging this. We're making it seriously. We're giving it, the credit it deserves and the time and attention it deserves. And they're kind of the examples that really started changing people's mind about Gamay and Beaujolais and that region in general, because they were really known as kind of the like country bumpkin farmers, and like they kind of suffered. It was like an elitist thing. It was like you have your Burgundians with their Pinot, and then you have your farmers with their Gamay, and it was like a huge divide, and it still kind of is. I mean, I was just there. I mean, kind of. It still is for sure. Although I will say, very interesting. So I was just there in February, and I actually got to meet with Jean-Louis de Trèves. He's awesome.
Yeah.
But so a couple of the Burgundian, like the big fancy, like really cool Burgundian producers, their sons and daughters are now starting to make Gamay from Beaujolais, which I think is really cool. So Vincent Dancer, which say it in French correctly, I'm not, but his son, Theo Dancer, is starting to make Gamay from Beaujolais, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, it also just leads to this Gamay is going to get more expensive conundrum that I fear. And
because the quality is going up and people are realizing it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'll always pine for the time, if you go to Paris, any bistro you sit down and you order a glass of red wine, 99% of the time they're going to give you a glass of Beaujolais, and it's probably out of a cask. It's
True.
out of like, and there is something romantically lovely about that. I mean, that's like what Hemingway and all of those people drank in the 20s in Paris. They drank Beaujolais. It was the wine of the people, in Paris for the writing class, as you would, and so, and the normal person, you get off work and you have a glass of red wine, it was Beaujolais. And so I do like that Beaujolais had this kind of like accessibility, but then it, like you said, with the Beaujolais Nouveau and all of that stuff, the race to Paris, it sort of got a little, I don't know, garbage is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So one of the fascinating things about it coming to the United States is that pre-Prohibition, something called Napa Gamay was one of the most planted red varieties that exist. It was everywhere. It was on the hills. It was on the floor. And, it was just sort of all over. Prohibition really messed everything up, as we all know. And a lot of vines were ripped out. A lot of vines just were left to die. But a lot of this Napa Gamay did survive. And then they found out in the 70s and in the 80s that it was not Gamay at all. It's something called Valdegay. So if you see something called Napa Gamay from like a 60s, 50s bottle, it's not actually Gamay. And I think that's another element of confusion to this poor grape that has not really had its day in the sun that it is clearly getting right now, starting to get right now. So where does your fruit come from, Meg? Is it from Napa?
No, it's not. I actually don't have any Napa fruit for my personal brand. My Gamay that I just released comes from Barsotti Vineyard, which is in the Sierra foothills.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, yeah, it's really cool. So technically it's the El Dorado AVA, but it's in the Sierra mountain, in the Sierras and the mountains. And so it's like 2,300 feet elevation, I think. The soil is absolutely perfect for it. It's such a special spot. So it's decomposed granite with milk quartz and real flecks of gold, because it used to be the reason we're able to get in up there is it used to be mined for gold. So there are literally still like milk quartz with flecks of gold in them, which is pretty incredible.
That's not unlike the soil in Fleury as well. That's granite based and quartz.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's the perfect spot for Gamay. I'm adding another couple of vineyards this year. I learned the hard way. You can't just have one Gamay vineyard in California. We had frost one year and we had fires one year. So I only have 2020 of Gamay, and then hopefully I'll get Gamay again this year. But last year I made Cab from Carmel. But so this year I'm adding a vineyard called Ascoli, which is in the Santa Lucia Highlands. And I don't know if you know Scott Caraccioli. He makes sparkling wine, and he also does some Gamay and Syrah. So I am getting the fruit from him. He actually farms it with a family out there. So that'll be super, super fun. I'm looking forward to that. And then one other Santa Lucia Highlands vineyard. So I'm interested to see the soil expressions in the wines, kind of, how that works out. Because I think in Beaujolais, there are, different, granite, decomposed granite is obviously like one of the best ones out there, but I haven't worked with different soil types with the Gamay yet. So I'm really interested to see what the expressions look like.
And John, you're going to release your first wine. You've been working for years on this vineyard. We've had you and your wife on the podcast to talk about all of the trials and tribulations of starting a vineyard. You're blending Gamay with Pinot, which I find like the opposite of gerrymandering here. You are literally mixing the French. I mean, right now, Philip the Bold is rolling in his grave for you to co-ferment and blend Gamay with Pinot. Why did you decide to do that? What are the complements between those two grapes with each other?
I mean, the French do it with the Passe du Grand, right? I mean,
is it just to screw the French? You're just really
no. The French blend Pinot and Gamay too. But we did it out of necessity because we last year was our fourth leaf for this vineyard, and so we had very small yields. So in order to make enough quantity of wine to make it worth it, we co-fermented the Gamay and the Pinot. So like Meg was talking about, she has granitic soils in the Sierra foothills. Sierra foothills are cool because it's one of the few places in California that have granite, sort of the holy grail of soil. Here in Oregon, at least on my site in the Willamette, we have volcanic clays. So we have volcanic soils. We dry farm here, and we wanted to find a site that had a decent amount of clay content because clay holds on to water. So we can go deep into the summer. Obviously, in Oregon, we get a lot of rain in the winter, but as soon as you get into the growing season, that rain tapers off, and sometimes it won't rain for 4 months, into October. So the soils here are perfectly balanced for Gamay in particular. I think this Gamay is vigorous, and as the soil sort of slowly dries out into the summer, the vines sort of regulate themselves. So the shoots sort of stop growing at the right time when they hit the top wire. And, so far what we've gotten out of this vineyard has been really exciting. We are very pleased with the wine, and hopefully it'll get better as years go by.
Can't wait to try it.
Yeah, I was able to barrel taste John's wine. It's going to be tremendous, honestly.
Awesome.
And I know, Meg, I've heard you've made some wine, so I assume your wine is going to be good as well.
Just a few wines.
It's pretty good. I'm actually very excited about it.
Yeah. No, it's you do great work. So
Thank
I want to
you.
really quick on this grape. There's a perception that it can't age.
False.
Yeah.
False.
So let's talk about the ageability of Gamay, because some of my favorite wines I've ever had were surprises. Ones that you'd be in Beaujolais, or they'd be somebody from the 70s. Like Ridge Vineyards made a Gamay way back, and we tried their Gamay, and it was old. And this grape is
cool. Yeah.
really ageable. So, spoilers to what I'm about to ask you: can Gamay age?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it totally can. I don't think Nouveau can age. I mean, it's not meant to, but that, yeah. Oh, it can. I love Gamay so much. So I also think you should, along with ageability, I do think that Gamay should be decanted. Like, I don't think people take it seriously. It changes so much when you decant it. Like, it just opens up so much when you first take it out of the bottle. And I've tried this with mine, but I've also tried it with some recent Beaujolais that I've had, and I'm like, why was I not decanting Beaujolais before? Gamay needs to be decanted. It really fills out, and I think it's a grape that holds its acid. Yeah, it definitely has ageability. I actually squirreled away 2 cases of my own wine because I'm like, I want to continue to open this up and see how it ages, and then also be able to show people how it ages, because a lot of people, I think it's like the Nouveau kind of left this mark on Gamay where people think they should just drink it immediately, that it's not ageable. It's absolutely got ageability.
Yeah, and for the time being, it's actually pretty affordable.
I would say that as far as the ageability of Gamay, I think it depends on, with any wine, it's the balance, right? So many wines I feel are out of balance in that they're either too ripe with not enough acid to get them through. And I think that when you pick at the right time, the acid will get you there, right? The acid gives you the longevity. And I think we haven't talked about, the versatility of Gamay as a grape in the winery, in that how you make it, right?
Totally.
In Beaujolais, it's typically done carbonic or semi-carbonic, but it's also equally suited to be destemmed. I mean, there are a lot of people that destem Gamay, and it's still beautiful. You have like great varietal purity, and it's a really great wine that can go for a long time.
Yeah.
So is it hard to sell, Meg? I mean, I know right now you're at the beginning, and I recommend everybody. In fact, Meg, plug your wine. Where can people get your wine right now?
So if you go to mzobekwines.com.
Okay, they can pick up these bottles. I'm assuming you do not have a ton of it, so people should probably jump on that.
I don't. There are actually only like 10 cases left. So
yeah. So that's probably sold out right now.
Yeah.
And John, your wine will be available later this year, which we'll make sure we have you back on to plug for that. Do you is it hard to sell though? I mean, obviously with such a small amount and being entrenched in the wine world, it's probably not hard to move that because the people you're selling to know what it is. But when you take a step outside that circle, is it difficult to say try a Gamay? I mean, Beaujolais has this kind of fun name to it, so people are like, "Ooh, sounds interesting. I'll try that." But when you say Gamay, are people kind of like, I'll have Malbec? I mean, is it tough to sell? I'm just curious from your standpoint.
I think I have a lot of people that know me because of my winemaking. So they've, I haven't had a hard time selling it. It's interesting though. I mean, I think all of us are kind of surrounded by people that know wine, right? So all of our friends know Gamay and our circles know Gamay. So I'm a Napa cab maker for my day job, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I definitely make a reserved style I make a pretty low alcohol, reserved style of Napa cab compared to some of my neighbors. But the thing that I've found fun and interesting is...
More shots fired. I like that. That's good.
Well, I mean, I didn't say that's a good thing or a bad thing. Everyone has their own, their own style. So the thing that's been really fun to me is the people that know me from my Napa cab making, when they try the Gamay, because there have been several people, we get in such a bubble here where we're surrounded by people that know wine that we forget what it looks like sometimes when people don't know wine, and so I've had several people say, "Oh, Gamay, I don't know it. Like, what can you tell me about it?" And, I had someone this weekend who had purchased some of my wine and they were drinking it, and they normally only drink very big Napa cabs. And they were like, and I was like, just make sure you decant it. Like, don't chill it. 'Cause that's the other thing. Like, cellar temp is perfect. It doesn't need to be cold, 'cause then you kind of lose some of the complexity. But I was like, serve it. They were at a restaurant. So fortunately I got to call my friend that was like serving them. And I was like, make sure it's not in the refrigerator, like make sure it's cellar temp and make sure they decant it. So they did. And they were sending me text messages and they were like, it's so good. I didn't even know what Gamay was. It's like really good. And they thought it was going to be like, we were talking about at the beginning, some kind of hipster grape or something, So they're like, what is this thing? And then they realized, wow, it's like, got amazing flavors, and it's, he was like, I didn't have a hangover. It didn't have as much alcohol as I'm used to drinking, like all these things. And I'm like, you can have several glasses. It's, delicious to be very, simple, put it in simple terms. It's delicious. It's fun to drink. Mine is definitely more on the complex side, but it's not like something that you're like, I need to sit down and really like analyze this and think about, it's like you can drink it. It's delicious. You want another glass. I think it's just a crowd pleaser. It's like medium bodied. It's not like, anything crazy. It kind of like ticks all the boxes. Mm-hmm. But introducing Napa cab drinkers to Gamay has been something that's like, I find it fun because I think they think they're not going to like it, and then they do. And I'm like, see, you can try other things. There's other things you can you can venture out.
I think that in Oregon, people have been pretty receptive to it. Obviously in the Willamette, it's like Pinot Noir is the way to go. And then, people try Gamay and it's like adjacent, right? It's like a very easy sell. And I mean, it's so hard. There's so many Gamay plantings that have gone in the last 2 or 3 years in Oregon. I mean, you cannot buy fruit. You cannot find Gamay for sale because there's just not enough of it and people want to make it.
California too. It's like, it's really, everyone wants Gamay. Like all the producers I know are trying to get Gamay. It took me 2 years to get into the vineyard that I got into for my first vintage. Yeah. I finally got in my third year on the wait list, and there's a huge wait list. Everyone keeps asking me like, can I get? And I'm like, no, I barely get any. You can't, you can't have any.
So is Gamay the next big thing? I mean, are we talking about like, cause I mean, this whole swath of what happens with grapes like this, there's a pattern here, whether it's Merlot or Pinot, or, any of these grapes, they plant a bunch, it gets really good, then it gets really shitty, and then everyone goes, let's move, and then some movie comes out or something and like decimates it, and then they rip it out, and then people go, oh, wait a minute, it was really good. Then it gets a resurgence.
Right.
Where's Gamay on the scale?
Definitely I've seen a lot more people planting Gamay. Like people are grafting over to Gamay out here, at least in California. I don't know, John, if you're seeing the same thing, but for sure, California, there's a huge surge. Not that everyone's ripping. I mean, people are grafting over. It's still not a lot, but it's certainly more than it was. And I know that there's a lot of planting contracts that are in the works at different places. Like Gamay is in high demand right now.
There has to be a part of you that enjoys this kind of insider thing with Gamay, that it's like you're in the know. It's exciting to be part of this, but when it gets bigger and more popular, do we lose something?
I don't think so. I think I know people kind of like worry about that, like, oh, I was the only one, now everybody's doing it. Like, I don't really see that as being an issue. Like, I mean, I think once you try to like squirrel it away and not share it and not have anybody else, that becomes a weird issue. I think I like the camaraderie in winemaking. Like like the vineyards that I'm in currently, like the Barsotti vineyard. So like Scotty Schultz, who does Jolie Lade, and then the Arnott Roberts guys, they get grapes from the same vineyard. And what I love is being able to talk to them about it, being like, what are you seeing? I'm seeing this. And how did your fermentation go? Mine's doing this. Like, I'd rather have more people to like have in the little Gamay crew than like, just be like, I'm the only one. Look at me. I don't know. Camaraderie is like part of the reason I love wine and winemaking in the first place. And, farming too. Like, I'd rather have more people in it and different expressions. And, I love Scotty's wines and the Arnott Roberts guys' wines and Scott Caraccioli's wines. I love the tastings where you get together with your friends who are making it and you can all talk about it. Like, there's so much to learn and share. Yeah. And that's part of the fun of wine. If we're coveting it for ourselves, that's like, I don't know, it's not really the spirit of wine.
Well, it is a pleasure to talk Gamay with you two. Make sure, if you're listening to this, you go check out mzobekwines.com, where everything's probably sold out. And and grab a bottle, because I do think supporting, I know that you work for a very large winery and a very respected one, but also, this is your passion and something we've talked for years and years about you getting this off the ground. So I just want to say huge congratulations, Meg.
Yeah, congrats.
Thank you. I'm stoked.
And to you, John, I cannot wait. I barrel tasted your wine. Your wine is going to go quick too. It's going to be fantastic. So
thank you.
Great work to all of you guys. And
thank you.
Next week we'll talk Pulsard. No, we will not. All right, you two. We will talk soon.
All right, thanks, guys.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. It means a lot. If you love this podcast, make sure you please give it a great review, give it a good rating wherever you listen, and go to blindersgame.com. blindersgame.com to get our blind tasting card game for 50% off for a limited time. blindersgame.com. I want to thank John Adams for producing this episode. I want to thank Megan Zobak for being on it. And I want to thank you listeners for listening. Everybody be safe and drink some Gamay for me. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.